Hi guys, this is Kimberly Siva at Mixed Space Technologies, and today let's talk about input control. So far in our Lexicon examples, we've basically let the Lexicon runtime run from the very start of the application, and that means that the speech service is constantly looking for speech input. Now, if you have your silence threshold set correctly, it should only be sending audio to the cloud when we cross that threshold, so when the user is actually speaking. But that requires that this is set correctly and also that your environment isn't too noisy. And that also may not be what you want to do in your application. Perhaps you'd rather have a button press for speech input or some other event that triggers speech input. So with the 0.5.1 release of Lexicon, we've added some nice functions to make all of this a lot easier. The first thing we've added are two new checkboxes here on the Lexicon runtime for independently enabling the speech-to-text service and the conversation service. Let's show how that works. Create a red cube here. Okay, now I'm talking and speech-to-text is not being processed. Create a blue sphere here. Okay, so that time speech-to-text was being processed, but conversation was not being processed. So that's a nice way just to quickly control those two services. But there's a disadvantage to immediately turning these things on and off right here, either disabling the entire runtime or disabling just one of the services. And that is that it immediately shuts down our WebSockets. So when you click off speech to text, the WebSocket shuts down, but what if the user had just finished saying something? Wouldn't we rather get that input and be able to process it? So we have some new tools that will help us with this. Let's create a new game object called input control. And let's add a component, the trigger speech input component. This is just a little sample script that will show two concepts, a push-to-talk key and single phrase capture. So I'm going to set my push-to-talk key to the space key. And for single phrase capture, I'm going to use the letter C. Okay, and that's all I have to do to set this up. Let's give it a try. So one thing that this script does is deactivates speech-to-text at start. So as you can see right now I'm talking, but nothing is being recognized. Now I'm going to hold down the space key. Create a blue cube here. Create a red sphere here. Okay, and I just let it go. Let's try single phrase capture. The way this works is I'll press the letter C just once, and then as long as I start talking within the capture timeout, it will capture a single phrase. Pressing C. Make this one smaller. Make this one smaller. So as you can see, it got that first phrase, but not the second phrase. So one of the advantages of both of these functions here is that they immediately turn off the microphone, but they don't immediately close the WebSocket. So we still have time to let Watson in the background process the speech and send us the results, and we can forward them to conversation. And all of this will work much more smoothly than if you were just turning things on and off over here. Let's look at the code to show you how that works. So these are just a bunch of new functions on the Lexicon runtime. Things like start speech service and stop speech service. And stop speech service is the one that has this important field here. Let's see if we can get it to show up. Wait for results. So wait for results, basically, if you set it to true, it'll keep the WebSocket open until the results come in, and then it will close the WebSocket. We also have on our Lexicon runtime this capture one phrase function that you saw how we used that. And you can set the capture timeout there. So that's a bunch of different ways to handle speech input. But what if you don't want to use Watson speech to text? That's another option here. So something else new that we've added is Lexicon text input. Let me just show you real quick how this works, and then we'll talk about it. So right now it's not listening to me. I just typed in create a red queen. We click the process button, and the conversation service now got that message and processed it like normal, but we didn't actually use the speech to text service. And so this is useful in a lot of situations. One, just for testing things at runtime if you don't want to say the same phrases over and over again. But it's also useful if you, say, wanted to use a local speech-to-text service or some other means of getting the text input. So this allows us to use all the powerful things that conversation offers without using the speech-to-text service. And again, this is really simple. We get the runtime. So this is a new easy way of getting the current runtime. And you call process input with an input string. So let's say you were using a local speech-to-text solution. You could just get the dictation string and put it right here with process input, and then Watson Conversation could still run off of that. So you now have a lot of different ways of controlling and mixing and matching these services. Hopefully this will suit a lot of different application needs. Thank you so much.